Mid-March and the crocus are up. And there's even a bee on the crocus. Although I never planted crocus in this yard. Got one more grouping right over here with another bee. Hey folks, how you doing? It's mid-March and it's an absolutely gorgeous day. We're gonna have about 3 or 4 days into the upper 50s, low 60s, so it's gonna feel like spring is here. Now, to get to this point, we've had 2 inch snowstorms in the last week. We had something called a blast cyclone or a bomb cyclone. I don't even know what that is. I never heard of it before. But here in New England, the weather can change almost instantaneously. So when you get nice days like today, you just enjoy them and make the best out of them you can. And that's what we're gonna do. What I'd like to do for this video is just walk you around the yard and show you some cool plants that are coming into bloom and just talk about some of the things I have done or will be doing in the coming weeks to kind of get the yard back in shape, and maybe it'll give you folks some ideas. I've got this wheelbarrow here, which I was using yesterday, and I've got my bucket here, which I would hang over here. I just threw my pruners in here. I've got a knee pad, which I'll often just lean the knee pad on the back of the handles there. I've got my garbage picker. I've got a little bit more tools than I usually would be bringing around the yard, but if I'm working in one specific bed, this is pretty much what I'd bring, and then I would lean my tools against a tree or the house and pick what I need as I need it. But I was working in a bed yesterday, and I just thought I'd show you kind of what I do in my yard, and if I'm in a client's yard. I've got, I've got my scuffle hoe here, so I'll go through the bed and get the weeds. And then once you get all the weeds, you can go through with your lightweight rake here. This is like a generic style rake that is made by one company and sold under a ton of different names. And I really like this rake. It is incredibly lightweight. And I'm not gonna say this is the strongest rake in the world. So if you're kind of, one of these people that likes to say everything's weak and gonna break, don't buy one. But if you're gentle with it and careful with it, it's worth having the lighter weight tool that you use carefully than some big heavy tool. And the reason I've got 2 is because what I'll do is when I rake up piles of leaves or whatever, you can just squeeze the piles of leaves, pick them up and put them right in the wheelbarrow. The 5-tine manure fork, which anybody in the trade should have, and I think even if you're a homeowner, you should have at least one in the house. And this is currently my favorite one. It's made by Corona. But this 5-tine manure fork is great for picking up, piles of anything from leaves to sticks to prunings. So if you have a bigger pile of debris, rather than using, the 2 rakes to squeeze them together or bend over, you can just use your 5-tine manure fork to get the brunt of the pile, then use the 2 rakes to clean up the end. Now, I also like to keep a nice flat shovel, a lightweight flat shovel. This flat shovel, I can't say is my favorite, but it's one I have around. It's decent. I like tools with yellow handles if I can find them, so they're easy to find. But what I'll do with my flat shovel is make sure it's got a nice sharp edge on it, on the bottom. And there's a lot of videos I'll talk about using what's called a handy file, which it's a file with a handle built into it. It's single cut on one side, which is less aggressive, double cut on the other side, which is more aggressive. And once you get a nice edge on that shovel, you just tweak it every once in a while. And what this shovel does is, if you're around plants, what you can do is just put the shovel like this and you drag it backwards, and it works just like a hoe if the weeds are small enough. If you just take it and run it along the edge of a bed that's already got a decent edge, you can kind of, dig that edge down enough where you don't need to do a fancy re-edging, and then you can just clean up the rest with the weed whacker later in the season. And then I've also talked about this garbage grabber, these garbage tongs. They're great for garbage, and then I'll put it right in the bucket here, but they're also good for picking up sticks that are around the yard. So if you add a weeding knife to all this, this is basically what I would use to work in the beds at this time of the year, where I'm really just looking to get any weeds before they get out of hand, rake up any leaves in the landscape, cut back any perennials, and then just rake the beds over just to make them look nicer. So that is Ellie, but Ellie looks very similar to our other great peer, Theo, just Theo weighs about 105 pounds, and sometimes I have a hard time figuring out who's who, but she's a sweetheart. What I've been doing is experimenting in this part of the yard and just mulching my leaves with the mower and blowing them into the beds and going with the more natural look. But what happens is when I blow the leaves in the beds, they end up covering all the daffodils. So the reason these daffodils are all still yellow is because last week I did get out and rake the leaves off of them, and they just haven't got enough light yet to turn green. When you see those bulges in your garden, get that lightweight leaf rake I showed you and just go ahead and, you know, clear the dirt off the top of your bulbs so they can get the light sooner than later. Later in the year, I will come out here with a leaf blower, and you'll see there's some bigger leaves back there, and try to clean out the bigger leaves. I really want to leave just the ones that are packed down and compressed, and, you know, not have it look messy, have it look neat, and just use the leaves as a mulch. This path over here, right now it looks okay, it's dirt, but when we had the freeze-thaw cycles, and we may still have some more again, this was just a muddy mess. And what I want to do is go get some cedar mulch and cover this path with like 2 to 3 inches of cedar mulch, so it's not this just muddy nastiness every time I come out to feed the birds. I like the cedar mulch because it contrasts to the leaves I have here, or the mulch I use in most of my gardens is hemlock mulch, which is darker. So as long as you have a contrasting mulch and what I would consider an organic mulch, not like chopped up tire mulch or something, I think it's a great idea to use where you have a path through the garden and you want to keep it from just becoming a muddy mess. Now over here, I've got an Arnold's Promise Witch Hazel, and this has been in bloom for about a week now. The blooms are getting a little bit stronger as time goes by, but this is one of the first blooms, if not the first bloom, to come in my landscape. So if you're looking for something to extend your season, you know, think about an Arnold's Promise Witch Hazel. I don't really grow it for the fall color, but I don't think it's horrible. Plant it in the back of your landscape, enjoy the spring blooms, and then just let it blend in the rest of the year. On those long, dark, cold days of winter, the sooner we can get more flowers, the better. This here is a perennial called Lenten Rose, which is very close to blooming. And if you look down here, these are actually flower buds. This is going to be a flower right there, and then right there, and then right there. And again, this is a plant that's going to give us something to look at really early in the year. I'll take whatever I can get. That's what I really want to say at this time of the year. It's called Helleborus. There's a few different species that are planted. And then this is a Lenten Rose that I got a few years ago, which I believe has yellow flowers. That is a flower coming on its way. And that is a hoof print right there. Somebody's been cutting through my garden. One of the next plants to bloom in my garden is going to be this Cornellian cherry. And if you take a look at the blooms, you can see they're very close. Hopefully that's in focus. Sometimes the camera does not want to focus up close. And it's so bright I can't really see anything, but there we go. Hopefully you are seeing some flower buds that are like about to open right there. Anything I can do to get early bloom and late bloom and extend the season. See all these dots here? This is actually woodpeckers, and I don't really know what they're doing, but they come and peck at the tree. And this crabapple also has These are woodpeckers as well. This is the bed of flowering cabbage I planted last year, and then I had some flowering kale over there. And this looked great until basically we got like the first snowfall that stuck. So at some point in January, it got covered by snow, and then it just kind of started to rot out when the snow thawed. Yesterday I got out and I cut back all the iris here. All these iris tend to catch leaves, and they were full of leaves. So it amazed me how once I got down there with my knee pad and my clippers, cut everything back, it went really quickly. And then I just did a quick pass through the garden with the hoe, raked everything up with the leaves and sticks, and it looks really nice. I also took that flat shovel, and I didn't really push the shovel in and try to cut an edge per se, but what I did is the soil is so damp at this time of the year, I just dragged the shovel on the edge of the bed and just kind of pushed it away from the edge to deepen the edge a little bit. Now I can come back with the weed whacker and tweak it once the lawn starts growing a little bit more. This is a tree peony that I've pretty much shown no care to, no attention to since I planted it, but every year it'll give me, you know, 8 to 10 flowers, and that's what these are, is the flowers. But again, it's just nice to see new growth coming on the plants. Just to prove that it really is mid-March, on the shady side of the house, we still have some snow here, and yesterday at this time of the day, it would have been 5 or 6 feet onto the lawn, but the temperature is getting hotter, warmer very quickly. And this is another effort of mine to get some early season bloom. This is a Cornell pink rhododendron. I put a group of 3 here, and there's 3 back there. I put them in last year because these will actually bloom before the foliage comes on the plant. Cornell pink has like 1-inch diameter trumpet-shaped flowers that are pink, obviously, very early in the spring. And it's a little bit bright, honestly, for my house, but I thought I'd give it a shot just to give me, again, that spring interest. While I was out yesterday, I raked all the grass. The plows had hit the edge of the lawn there and ended up throwing some grass, some sod strips, basically onto my lawn. So I raked them back towards the road. I cut a little bit of the grass growing on the driveway off, and then I really need to come back with some grass seed and seed this sooner than later. And then you can see the buttons of the sedum coming through here as well. And also we've got the daffodils coming up. And just as an aside, you know, this garden doesn't really look all that bad. But if I were to just go through this garden with my scuffle hoe and get these weeds in the back of the bed, bring a flat shovel and shovel the leaves out of the window wells here, and then take that lightweight rake I showed you and just go through this bed and rake everything up, you know, preferably sooner than later so we don't do any damage to the daffodils. This bed is pretty much good to go. And then later in the season, if I wanted to, I could put some mulch on top of it. In this bed I came through yesterday and there was some chickweed growing around these daffodils that I got rid of. But this is where I want to plant some of those Casablanca Oriental lilies, because eventually this maple tree is going to die and we're going to have a lot more sun. And I think it would be beautiful to have those Casablanca daylilies growing after the daffodils fade away. If you have any bare patches in your lawn, you want to get that grass seed down as early as... Ellie's a barker. She is a barker. Hello. So Ellie's a barker and we have a collie. Not the next house, but the next house over. There's a collie over there and they just bark at each other all day. One thing I want to touch on is one of the best times of the year to seed bare spots in your lawn is late winter, early spring. When we're getting those freeze-thaw cycles and the ground is like mush, that's the best time to come out with a bag of seed and just throw it wherever your lawn is thin. and those freeze-thaw cycles are going to get that seed mixed in there, get it moist, and get it to start growing. So rather than weeds coming to fill in this place, you'll have grass seed. I think another thing I may start doing is actually buying a 25 or 50-pound bag of grass seed at the end of the season, or even in the fall before it all sells out, and just keeping it around the house so in early spring or late winter, when the nice weather's here, I can just go grab the bag and sprinkle it around. There's a bluebird in this shot. There's two bluebirds in this shot. I'm not really sure you're seeing them or not. On top of the playset there, that's a bluebird. So here is how the elephant ears are doing, and they look like they're doing perfectly fine. They're leaning towards the light, and you know, they definitely have gotten to the point where I really should divide them and, you know, break them apart to smaller plants. The impatient seedlings in my pots have been getting larger, and I really don't know if I'm going to actually put these outdoors or just start with something fresh next year. But it's been fun to watch them growing. And then there you can see the begonias, which have been doing okay over the winter. I think I did cut a couple of them back a little bit too far, but otherwise they're doing all right. Over here we've got some more of the impatiens making their way up. And then we've got some more begonias there, which I'm not sure if I'm underwatering or overwatering, or there's just not enough light over here. It's a little bit darker. They're not really thriving as much over here. I've got no signs of new growth on the corn plant. I keep waiting for one of these little nubs to start bulging out and become a new plant. But so far, no sign. And then this guy over here, which I forgot the name of again, my Farfugium. I don't know if I'm overwatering or underwatering. I just know every winter, by the end of winter, my Farfugium starts to look not good. The soil looks like it's a little bit too wet, but once I bring it outside, it usually just bounces right back to life. And then I've got, I don't remember if it was a Christmas cactus or an Easter cactus, but that's doing okay as well. Everything's going to make it through the winter perfectly fine, and hopefully I will have some new growth on this corn plant soon. This is Ellie, and she's a new addition to the household. She is a rescue from Texas, and we got her through an organization known as Big Fluffy Dog. I'll put a link in the description if anybody wants to go check them out. But we got our other great peer, Theodore, from them as well, and she is a great Pyrenees mix. And she's about lab size. So I think she's about 60 to 70 pounds if I had to guess. But she's a wonderful addition to the household. She's still kind of getting used to the household, and you know, my cats and Theo are getting used to her, but she's got a great spirit, and we're looking forward to getting to know her better. I planted these Paperwhites here about 10 days ago, and it just amazes me how easy Paperwhites are to grow. And I have a time-lapse, a daily time-lapse of these growing, but they're really an easy plant to grow, and I highly recommend them if you're a gardener and, you know, want some interest in your kitchen or your house for the winter. And I love the taller vases because they do a good job of, you know, keeping them from spreading out too much. I really like this vase here. That is Phoebe, our rescue cat, and there is Ellie there sleeping. So this is only after 2 days. They're getting used to each other, and she has shown no aggression whatsoever towards the cats, whereas our cats look like puffer fish when she gets near them, because their tails, all their fur just fluffs out. They're ready to defend themselves if needed, but luckily they haven't had to. The house I live in is an old farmhouse. We think it was built around 1820. It's got hand-hewn beams. It's got what's known as balloon construction. And it's also got, in the basement here, this little, you know, root cellar type thing. And it's got this writing on it, which, you know, I try not to touch, but it's gotten lighter through the years. But I think this is 1913 on it. And then there's the name of the family who I assume owned the farm back in the day. But I've been using this to store my Paperwhites, So I've got the bag of Paperwhites that I purchased, and then this is an Amaryllis that I had out in the yard. But while I was at Lowe's last week, I did pick up some of these Casablanca daylilies, which what I'm going to do is interplant with some of my daffodils. So after the daffodils finish blooming, hopefully I'll get some of these Oriental lilies in the beds. But Phoebe is our best mouser, and she does like to check things out whenever we open the basement door. All right, folks, well, I think that's pretty much going to do it for this one. I'd love to do more videos like this where I just kind of talk about what's going on, and I don't know that I can be Mr. Flashy YouTube guy. That's not who I am. I know I look like I'm a pretty cool dude, but I'm just a guy that likes to garden. So if you can do me a favor and hit the like button, leave a comment, because YouTube needs to know, and sometimes I forget to ask, to give the channel some attention. So if you could, it would be great. Thanks for watching today, folks, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. With what's going on in the world, I just wanted to close with this dog barking, but also these two colors here that I honestly, a month ago, wouldn't have even known what those two colors represented, but now I do.